HIMARS was built around one simple principle: fire, move, disappear. But the battlefield in Ukraine has changed. The threat to these systems no longer comes only from ballistic missiles, artillery, or airstrikes. FPV drones are increasingly becoming part of the targeting chain. And the most important question is no longer, can a cheap drone destroy a HIMARS? There is already evidence that it can. The bigger question is, how far has this capability evolved into a repeatable hunting method? That is where the story becomes much more interesting. For years, one of HIMARS' greatest advantages was mobility. The system does not need to operate directly on the front line. It can fire from a concealed position, relocate quickly, and attempt to disappear before the enemy can respond. This is the classic shoot-and-scoot concept. But modern warfare is increasingly dominated by sensors. Reconnaissance drones can monitor roads, they can observe firing positions, they can identify movement patterns, and most importantly, they can remain in the air after a HIMARS has already left its launch position. So the challenge is changing. It is no longer simply about finding a HIMARS. It is about maintaining contact with the target long enough to bring a weapon against it. That is where the combination of reconnaissance drones and FPVs becomes particularly important. The incident near Rubicon demonstrated that a HIMARS could become the target of an FPV drone attack. But if we focus only on that incident, the story immediately feels dated. The more interesting development came later. By 2026, further footage associated with Russia's Rubicon drone unit showed a similar hunting pattern. A HIMARS was detected after carrying out its mission. Its movement was then monitored, and an FPV drone was used to intercept it. If this pattern continues to appear repeatedly, we are no longer looking at one spectacular success. We are looking at a potential change in the method of warfare. HIMARS is no longer simply a target that has to be located. It can become a target that is actively hunted. And there is a major difference between the two. The advantage of FPV drones is not simply their low cost. It is the combination of sensors, speed, flexibility, and numbers. One reconnaissance drone detects the target. The operator receives information about its location and direction of movement. A strike drone can then be directed towards the target. In some cases, the drone does not even need a sophisticated weapon system. The drone itself becomes the weapon. And the growing use of fiber optic FPVs adds another layer to the problem. Conventional FPV drones rely on radio communications. That makes them vulnerable to electronic warfare and radio frequency jamming. A fiber optic drone changes that equation. Control signals and video are transmitted through a physical fiber optic cable trailing behind the aircraft. There is no conventional radio link that has to survive throughout the entire flight. That means electronic warfare cannot automatically solve the problem. This does not make fiber optic drones invulnerable. They have their own limitations. But in an environment saturated with electronic warfare, they provide another way to maintain control until the final stage of an attack. This is where the economics become particularly interesting. HIMARS is a strategic weapon system. Losing one is not simply a matter of losing a truck. There is the launcher, the crew, the supporting infrastructure, the logistics, and most importantly, the loss of part of a precision long-range strike capability. An FPV drone, by comparison, is designed to be expendable. That creates an inherently asymmetric exchange. A high-value system can be forced to defend itself against a much cheaper threat. But it would be too simplistic to say, a cheap drone defeated an expensive weapon. That is not the real story. The deeper issue is that an expensive weapons platform is operating against a network of sensors and low-cost attack systems that can be distributed across the battlefield. And that is a much bigger problem. There is one important point to make clear. This does not mean HIMARS has suddenly become ineffective. Quite the opposite. Its capabilities still make it a highly valuable asset, and that is precisely why it is being hunted. But high value creates its own consequences. The more sensors that cover the battlefield, the harder it becomes for a large weapon system to operate according to the same predictable patterns. HIMARS crews have to adapt. Firing positions, movement routes, camouflage, decoys, dispersal, counter-drone protection, and electromagnetic discipline. All of these factors become part of the same problem. How do you use a high-value weapon system without making it too easy to find? So the real story is not one HIMARS being hit by one FPV drone. The real story is the changing nature of modern warfare. In the past, long-range artillery systems were primarily concerned with counter-battery fire. Today, the threat is increasingly connected to persistent surveillance. One drone detects the target, another sensor maintains the track, an operator determines the opportunity, and a strike drone attempts to finish the engagement. That is why this development matters. Not because HIMARS has suddenly become obsolete, but because mobility alone is becoming a less reliable guarantee of survival. If Russia can continue expanding this capability on a consistent basis, while Ukraine improves its own concealment, deception, and counter-drone measures, we could see another stage in the technological race taking place across the battlefield. The question is no longer simply who has the most expensive weapon. It is increasingly about who can find the target first, maintain contact longer, and strike before the target disappears. And that may be the most important lesson behind the growing hunt for high-value systems. What do you think? Is the battlefield moving towards a future where mobility is no longer enough to protect expensive weapon systems? Let us know your view in the comments. And if you want more analysis of how technology and tactics are reshaping modern warfare, support the channel by subscribing and leaving a like. Disclaimer: this video discusses publicly available battlefield information and open source assessments. Claims surrounding individual strikes may remain subject to uncertainty, and battlefield footage can be incomplete, selectively presented, or difficult to independently verify.